We're already live. Let's freaking go. We jumped on it.
Yeah,
Yep.
quick.
There it is.
We're about 5 minutes from me going to bed.
Um, Sorry, I'm trying to get the thing.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome in, everyone, to another breaking news episode of the Batfoot Podcast. If you watched our Willie Adamas one, we told you another one was coming pretty soon this weekend. And boy, did we get it. Michael Conforto signed a 1 year, $17 million deal with the Dodgers. No, okay. Obviously, we got the Juan Soto news. 15 years, $765 million with the New York Mets. There seems to be some escalators that could take that up to over $800 million. No deferred money, it seems, but there's been some conflicting reports about opt-outs or whatever. But still, I think when the offseason started, we were all like, it could reach 700, but like, man, we would kind of be surprised if it did. And then it's like, it just kind of kept going up from there. And here we're at, we're like, all in all, it could end up being over 800 million technically,
Wow.
which is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So Matt, me and you were sitting in here just talking to each other right before this, waiting for it to happen. So what were, when you saw that tweet actually come through, what was your thoughts?
I mean, we've been hearing the rumors of it's what was rumored. It was between the New York teams, and it was over 700 million. So my initial reaction was, well, there it is. Like we kind of what there was no huge surprise. The surprise has been the things that have been rumored up to today. So my reaction today is like I kind of already expected something like this after the last couple of weeks, but I mean, I'm just I'm confused a little bit by the fact that he got more than Otani by a lot, and the fact that there's no deferrals. So that's crazy to me that he'd get that much more than Otani. But I guess when you get the two New York teams do, duking it out like this with Steve Cohen involved, I mean, he can pay whatever he wants to pay. So I mean, it's one of those things that it was definitely. I mean, I never expected. I don't even remember what I put on our predictions here for the free agency. I did not expect.
600.
Yeah, I expected a huge contract, but I did not expect this. And I think 15 years takes him to what age
39.
40,
39.
39. Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
age 39. So I mean, it'll be basically the rest of his career.
Yeah.
So
It might be 40.
yeah,
41, I
I
think.
think he came up at he
I
came
think
up at
That
19.
was his year 25, right? So
Yeah,
it was
26 through
26, I think.
40.
yeah,
Yeah,
26
you
through
see.
40 will be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean
Um,
it's
It,
crazy though.
yeah.
no.
So just real quick, Heyman also put out the Yankees bid was 16 years, 760.
Wow.
So basically same amount, just an extra year from the Yankees. Um, but that got the deal done for Soto to the
Man,
Mets.
Yeah,
that
So
is. Wow.
yeah, and if you go if you think about that's interesting because the extra year
it would make it
was
47 and a half AAV, so it'd still beat Otani's.
right.
Where he got 51 on this deal.
Yeah, well, the extra year is interesting that the Yankees offered because that would have lowered the AAV on the contract. But I mean, Juan Soto might not get an age 41 year for any money at all. So I mean, that probably would have just been a way to lower the AAV without it
Yeah.
changing his total earnings. So I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't just go back to the Yankees. And that I wonder if the Yankees didn't want to do an opt out, and that might be part of the contract. And also that you mentioned the escalators in the contract. I wonder if the Yankees just didn't want to include any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
If
I wonder
you're
if that might
So,
be a thing.
if you're at this point when you're, the New York Yankees and you are bidding in the 750 plus $1 million range, why would you not do any of those
I mean,
things?
I,
That's really confusing. If you've given in to we're gonna pay Juan Soto the most money in professional sports, at least in U.S. sports for sure.
it's the most in professional sports history.
Right. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if a Messi or Ronaldo contract
No, no,
had
it was.
jumped this, but
I guess maybe it's possible because they have like ownership stake that it could,
right. Okay.
but like they've announced it as the largest contract in sports history.
Yeah, the largest, typical money contract in
Yeah.
sports history, and I thought this was possible. I had Soto going for 725, back in our predictions. Yeah, this bidding is expected. It's basically because the New York teams are bidding each other, and then Boris managed to get the Red Sox involved. I think that kicked it up a notch even further. But it's very clear that Juan Soto was never leaving New York. I think
Yeah.
the only reason he would have left New York is if the Dodgers had come over the top, right? And we saw a couple hours ago Michael Conforto signed. I think the Dodgers were in it because the Dodgers are the Dodgers, right? And
Yeah.
the thing that Andrew Friedman says is you can't just think you're out on a free agent because you'll always finish third if you're hunting for value. You have to go for
Yeah.
it. And the Dodgers have done this. So we're seeing it. And then they immediately jump on Conforto, lock him down. Supposedly they're still on Teoscar Hernandez. So, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees seem to be playing in those waters. And I expect the Yankees to have to pivot heavily. That might be to Max Fried's benefit by a wide margin.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him pivot to Freed. I mean, even Bregman
Um.
would fit
Bregman,
there. Yeah, some
Yeah.
sort of
Christian
a
Walker.
top starting pitcher. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get in on the Cody Bellinger trade market
Yeah,
now.
they'll be in on it for sure.
Because that also covers them either outfield or first base,
Yeah.
which they kind of need both of them.
Yeah, they need center
But
field
yeah,
bad.
this is a massive blow for the Yankees. I mean, at the end of the day,
Huge.
it really is. You traded all of that away last
Yeah.
year with the
And
hopes like you're going to have the 1 year with Soto. They made the World Series run. They weren't able to push over the top, and they made the competitive offer. But like to not finish the deal as the New York Yankees here, like that's got to really really sting, and it sets them like they're almost in a panic mode now because I think if you look at that roster, you look at that team now,
it's
you're
not
like,
good.
it's not good. Like it was carried by Judge, by Soto, by you know Stanton
There's a
in
few other
that. Like,
guys in there, but like Judge and Soto, that was we talked about this during the World Series. Judge and Soto were
yeah,
the drivers of that team. If because you had the two absolute superstar players, like you had the two best players in the American League. So you know, it was one of those things where if one of them wasn't there, then that team would just been mediocre. And I
Mm.
mean,
yeah,
and that's what they are as they're built right now. Now, can they pivot? And like y'all mentioned, I don't know what Max Fried's going to do to help their offense. I really don't. I mean, I don't. Their
Yeah,
offense is going to be bad right now. Right now, it's Judge and a bunch of bad, and I don't know that they can, especially with the fact that Stanton's another year older. He's been injury prone.
mhm.
I mean, you might get a step forward from Volpe. You lost Gleyber Torres, who was one of your more consistently decent hitters. I mean, he's not great, but he was, at least an
yeah.
established solid bat. I mean, who do you even have? I mean, Verdugo,
Yeah,
like
Jazz
Verdugo's a
Chisholm,
free agent.
Jazz Chisholm. I mean,
and yeah, Verdugo is a free agent.
that's right. That's right. He sure is. So,
Jason
you know,
Dominguez is penciled in left field right now, and
I,
I like Jason Dominguez, but you aren't relying on
you
that.
don't want to
Like,
rely on that.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah,
mean
no,
it's one
and
of those
that's
things. You just don't know what. I don't know where they can pivot. I mean, they have
well,
so many holes. You
I
can't fill every one of them.
they can easily pivot and fill enough holes. If you, I mean, what's to say that they couldn't go trade for Cody Bellinger, put him in right field, and then go sign Christian Walker and Alex Bregman and
yeah,
fill first and third base, and then you don't look at that team as like a bad team. It's like, okay, well then they're
Yeah,
pretty solid at that point, and then at that point they could still go get a top level starting pitcher to add into that as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
and because you still have Cole, but you do have some uncertainty around the
yeah,
rest of the rotation, so you could still do that. Like
yeah.
this team is bad right now, but they
Right.
could easily make plenty of moves to still make
Mhm.
it good
Yeah.
using the Juan Soto money and just giving that out to four different people.
Well, I think a couple things to remember on that note are that we talk about the AAV for Soto. It's what, like 47 million? That's what he's getting, right?
47 and a half,
AAV
yeah.
47 and a half. Okay, so if you get Bregman and you get Walker and you get Bellinger, right? You get the three. Those probably add up in total to what one Juan Soto is as a value wise, right?
Yeah.
But think
Yeah.
about the AAV difference with those guys. Like that's going to be,
Mhm.
they're all going to be getting 20 million a year. So
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very like their value of getting Juan Soto at that point becomes like way more than those three players. And I don't know, like the Yankees last year, if y'all remember, and that didn't even include the pitching, like trying to fix the pitching. So the Yankees last year, if you remember, I mean, there was a lot of talk about them not signing free agents late because of the luxury tax and not wanting to go higher in payroll. I don't think that it was necessarily a hard line of we are not going higher, but like they were reluctant at least to go higher on payroll last year. So now they're going to start jacking their payroll up even more after missing on Juan Soto, and I just thought that would. I don't know. I mean, and it seems like that's not even a sure fix for this team, making them a World Series favorite again. So I mean, this was a big miss for the Yankees. I mean, I think that a lot of these other rumors about like bringing in Max Fried or another similar type of pitcher, Crochet, if they trade for him, something like that, a lot of those rumors were based on we're going to get Soto and add to what we had last year.
Mhm.
But they no longer have what they have last year, and they've got massive gaping holes in their roster now, and they're kind of looking like they did year before last when they won like 81 games. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be this is a really tough loss for the Yankees, and I don't know that they're going to be able to. You never know with baseball. I mean, they could get into the playoffs as the as a wild card team, make a run or something. I'll never rule out a World Series run or anything, but uh, right now I just don't have much confidence that they're. I mean, that's a lot of moving parts too to have happen. So to
Yeah.
fix this, so it's a big loss, but I guess we should probably talk more about the Mets and what this means for them because they're the ones that now have
I
Juan Soto.
I mean,
Yeah.
this might be a death knell for the current Yankees GM regime if they couldn't convince Juan Soto to stay. Like, not in the sense that they've been doing a
Oh,
bad job, because this group did just sign Aaron Judge and did just get the Yankees to the World Series, but this is going to reflect and go very badly in the Yankees fandom and in across that whole group. They are, I think George Steinbrenner has said, you can pay whatever you want, bring him back. And it's not, I think it's George anymore, but
it's Hal.
Stein,
Hal, yeah,
Hal said, you pay him whatever you want, you can bring him back. And them not getting that done is a bad sign. And I do think that that's worth at least a little more discussion on, because
yeah,
No, Hal's
this,
been directly involved in all of this, though.
yeah,
It's not like this was all on Cashman. Like Hal was involved in these meetings,
yeah.
so you can't just blame
Yeah.
Cashman for this
Well,
one. Like
he might
it's
publicly.
the easy narrative,
yeah,
but like Hal at the end of the day, like he's the one that makes the decision. He was the one that made sure Aaron Judge came back.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, Hal could call and say like, "What's the number that I have to do to make him
yeah.
sign right
Well,
now?" And he didn't do it.
yeah. Well, you got to remember that Hal's the one signing Cashman's checks, so Hal can call if Hal wants to call out Cashman and say it's his fault, then that's the word that goes, and it might not fix the Yankees to fire Cashman, but Hal will do that because he
Mhm.
can't fire himself. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
it's and for that matter, look, I've talked on here a bunch about my problems with Cashman. I mean, I really don't think Cashman's all that great. So I don't think that it would be a problem for them to get rid of him. I think I think he's really been there for the last few years just because he has had so much tenure with the Yankees. I mean, he's been there forever but even before he was the GM, he was, in their organization. So I think they would have fired him 2 or 3 years ago if it wasn't for that, because they have run massive payrolls and he's had every resource in the world possible, and the Yankees haven't won a World Series in 15 years, which has never happened for the Yankees before. So I mean, it's been the longest dry spell of Yankees baseball probably ever, and Cashman's been behind all of it. So I mean, I don't want to call for him to lose his job because they have not. It's not like they've been the worst team in baseball or something. They've been good and they've been in the
Mhm.
playoffs almost every year. But it's at a certain point, if you're the Yankees and your expectations are what the Yankees' expectations are, it's tough on your GM to not win and win
yeah.
World Series and really only have one good shot at one since their last one, which was this year, and they lost the player that got them there. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I want to note one more thing before we switch over to this from the Mets perspective, is that this is maybe the first time I can recall, at least in my lifetime, that the New York Yankees were, the team that's made of money, that steals all the good players, just lost on a bid to for the second best player in baseball. We'll call him the second best player in baseball, right? Like, that is crazy. This is an astronomical shift in the way baseball is going to be absorbed from here on, because the Yankees are no longer like the giants that cannot be toppled, right? When the Yankees have wanted a player, they've gotten the player historically, right? I think they were in on Yamamoto, but they weren't like pushing all the chips in. This is an all the chips in push for Juan Soto. They didn't get him, and it was close, and they could have kept going and didn't. To me, it says the Yankees are, I think this is like a shifting of the guard where we're no longer talking. When you think about the like premier team in baseball, you can't think about the Yankees first anymore. Like
The
it's been the
Dodgers.
case for a while, but it's shifted to the Dodgers. The Dodgers are the team. They made a move tonight in response of losing Soto. It's been, almost a half hour to an hour since Soto went. The Yankees haven't done anything, right? They haven't pivoted. They're in shock. Like the Dodgers pivoted. They were ready. They knew there was a possibility they weren't going to get Soto. That's what the best organization in baseball is going to do right now. The Yankees are shell shocked, and that is bad.
Yeah.
All right. So right before we jump over to talking about the Mets, one part, just so we're getting more info on different bids and stuff. The Red Sox bid was at 15 years, $700 million.
That's still a monster offer.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
That's really good.
I mean, I would
they
have
were right
expected beforehand that would have gotten him. I mean, before the offseason, easily.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that was my exact number I predicted was 15,700.
Yep. I had 14. I had 14,725. I don't know why I didn't put 15. Either way.
So, I mean, that's what I thought would have got it done, and it didn't. I mean, it just got into this bidding war. Also, can we say poor Toronto Blue Jays for the second year in a row, just getting used?
I just don't
like
after the response last year that I saw from Blue Jays like fans and stuff was pretty negative.
I get it, but like at the same point, like you've been used back-to-back years because your owners are so like well off
and desperate
in bidding wars. Yeah, but hey, like I'm sure Vlad and Bo Bichette are just like this right now walking in. So like, hey, about that $700 million you guys are going to offer, like we're right here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Vlad and Bo Bichette might be looking for who's going to actually be able to bring people in to help too. So
right.
Alrighty, so now let's get over to talking about what this does for the Mets and that whole NL East moving forward. Soto's going to lock down. So the opt-out fine sense says after 2029. Just
5 years
real quick.
Okay.
So that's another wrinkle. He could opt out at 31.
Yeah, that would be 31. But I can't see him opting out.
It
depends on how it's structured.
I was going to say I saw that I think he's got a $75 million signing bonus.
Yeah.
So that affects it, and then I bet it's front loaded. So
right.
The Mets have a decent amount of young players like Alvarez, Vientos. I mean, I guess Beatty can still be kind of thrown in there. They've got some of these young players that, right now they're not having to pay very much, and they're able to front load it because they're on pre-arb. And when they get to arb and start moving up, then they'll be different. But
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it's structured because that opt-out might be more feasible for him. I mean, at that point, but anyways, so you would imagine Soto probably slots into second in this lineup right behind Lindor with Vientos right behind them and Nimmo right there too. Now the question mark is going to be, what does this mean for Pete? Are they still going to be in on Pete? Are they letting Pete walk? Who knows?
I would.
I mean,
I would let him walk, especially now. Pete was a perfect contingency for losing Soto, but now that you've got Juan Soto, you're putting Vientos at first base, and you're talking Alex Bregman, I think.
I don't know. I think it makes more sense to go re-sign Pete.
It's hard it's hard to say just
Vientos
because
back at third.
I mean, I don't know.
Vientos at third, but like my thing is the Marte contract's going to be up in a year or two. You can just easily slide Pete to DH for the last 3 to 4 years of that, move Vientos over, and then you just figure out third base at that point. Like
maybe
Pete being the 4th or 5th bat in that lineup, I think makes a ton of sense for them.
Well, I think a couple of interesting notes on this are, Juan Soto. What's that?
Really?
There's got another thing. Ari Alexander just said the Dodgers are in agreement with Blake Treinen in 2 years, $22 million.
Okay.
So all right, well,
reliever.
The Dodgers pivoted, and they have been on it tonight.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers were probably waiting out just a little bit for Soto just in case, but I think they had this. I think they had these moves already kind of ready to go because they knew that. I think the Yankees really were the last team in there with the Mets.
Mhm.
And that's probably why they haven't fully pivoted because they were all in on it. I think the Dodgers were kind of in on it, but they weren't really expecting it, so they were already making these other moves, and they probably
Yeah.
got told no a little bit earlier too. But yeah, back to the Mets. I mean, you look at Alonso, and I don't know. I mean, you could make an argument either way. I mean, you could sign Alonso back, Vientos at third, sign him to like a 2 or 3 year deal or something, and you could have, that would be probably the good time frame for Vientos to move across because right now Vientos is acceptable at third ish. He's not great there, but he can do it.
Mhm.
But obviously we prefer him at first base. And one other thing, just to kind of, I guess, kind of throw out there, Juan Soto is a guy who he's not an elite defensive outfielder. And as he ages a little bit, gets closer to 30, 31, he might need to move to first base eventually, especially with you wanting to keep his bat in the lineup, keep his value high. You might need him moving to first base or DHing more when he gets a little bit older. So right now, he's definitely capable of playing left field for the Mets or right field, wherever they want to put him based on their outfield there. But like in the future, you look at this long term, he's probably going to eventually move to first because he's already a pretty rough outfield defender. So you're probably going to want to have that open, in the not too distant future, to give you that option. So I think that I think that Christian Walker might make sense for the Mets too. They really like guys who are high on base types. They take a lot of pitches, take a lot of walks. That's what Soto is, of course. Soto does everything, but that's his kind of main skill. Is he's got like one of the best eyes we've ever seen.
Mhm.
So I think that that's the kind of time you look at Brandon Nimmo is a good example of that. You look at Lindor to a certain level is like that. Um, so I think that that's something the Mets value for pretty highly. And yeah, I mean, I think could work out anyway. I don't know how much more they're going to spend. As in, like, you know, can they bring in Bregman and fix because their pitching is still an issue. I
Yeah.
think.
I,
I mean,
I was gonna
yeah,
transition this to the Mets cannot be done here. They if you're in like this for Juan Soto, it's time to go all in. You need to
yeah,
go. You keep spending hog wild. At this point, Cohen's willing to spend for the luxury tax. He's willing to
yeah,
pay whatever overages there are. It doesn't matter to him. The you might as well go get another rotation member in this, and it might be just bringing Sean Mania back. That might be the easiest move,
yeah,
right? You're already guaranteed the qualifying offer pick from Severino, so losing the Mania pick doesn't seem as impactful, and that deal shouldn't be too crazy. Um, and then they need more in that lineup, right? The top four are really, really good, but it was a problem, right? It
yeah,
was an issue for them down the
yeah,
stretch. And you are, Soto is effectively right now overtaking the Pete Alonso production in this lineup, which I'd rather have Juan Soto, every time, right? But
Yeah.
there was already a player there that was a pretty decent performer,
yeah,
and so they have to continue to add because just elevating that Pete Alonso slot
yeah,
to Juan Soto does
Yeah.
not take this lineup from being, a 4-2 loser to the Dodgers to a definite favorite or even on the same par, right? Because the whole issue with that series was, well, the Dodgers pitching is in shambles. They might stumble, but the Dodgers were the better team. The Mets
yeah.
are now in possession of
But
a player on par with Otani. They're still lacking behind, right? Because they have Lindor, they have Soto. They're still lacking behind.
yeah,
And the Mets want to be the favorite. They want to be the Dodgers right now. That's
right.
what they're going for.
Yeah, and I think that one thing to remember with the Mets, and you kind of hit on it a little bit, but last year the Mets were very good last year. I don't want to take anything away from them, but they were a little bit of a mirage. They had one of those seasons that just everything kind of went right for them. You had Iglesias, Jose
Mhm.
Iglesias, just absolutely pop off. Which I mean, you're probably not going to get that again. Of course, he's a free agent, but that type of player is probably not going to do that for you again. And the same, Harrison Bader had a really good season for them last year. And you look at like the Vientos breakout, is that actually going to stay at the level it was? Like obviously you had Lindor's best career season, which Lindor might repeat that. We don't know. I mean, he's obviously a very, very good player. And then your pitching was able to hold together a lot better than you kind of expected, and they won a lot of close games, a lot of one-run games, a lot of late game comebacks. This was a team that won a lot of very difficult games. So and obviously you give them a lot of credit for that. They were tough. They were a good team. They made it to the NLCS. I don't want to take anything away from them, but they also had a little bit of a profited off of the Braves having a lot of injuries. The Phillies kind of choked in the playoffs a little
Yeah, a
bit.
little bit.
Like, I mean, you had they and with all those really close games and a fairly weak wild card in the National League last year. um, I mean, you didn't have. I don't know that the Mets, if they had the same roster back, would repeat that. So I think Juan
Mhm.
Soto, as their roster stands right now, I think Juan Soto takes them back to that level as pretty much like I would predict them to be at that level. Whereas I would have predicted them to take a step back without adding him. I
Right.
predict them to be at that level now, and they need to add pitching. In my opinion, I think their offense will be pretty good. I mean, Vientos had his breakout as I mentioned. You had Nimmo, you got Lindor. You would expect Francisco Alvarez to take a little bit of a step forward, another gear. Obviously Marte's not a bad player by any means at this stage. Um, you might want to get another like a center field option, I guess. I'm not
Yep.
sure who they would currently have there. I mean, I
They
guess
have Tyrone Taylor, and then they have Jose Siri.
yeah.
They did
Well,
get
they
Siri.
did get Siri. I mean, they might run that out there, and then you mentioned third base slash first base, whoever. Whether it's
Yeah.
Vientos or,
And,
playing third and somebody coming in to play first, or someone coming in to play third, Vientos moving across.
and they another thing too is, I mean, I know they still have him, but they might need to figure out another second baseman because Jeff McNeil did not look good this year
Oh,
either.
I forgot Jeff McNeil was still there,
Um,
honestly.
so like I think they could use another impact infielder at least somewhere
Yeah.
in first, second, or third technically, because I think you could figure out kind of everything else around that.
Mhm.
Um, I think they would run out Taylor and Siri in the outfield pretty easily, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I think that the Mets, I think they're a good team. I
Mhm.
honestly, I think it's just their starting pitching. I mean, you look at it at the moment, like their number two is Frankie Montas.
Yeah.
Their one is
Mhm.
Kodai Senga, who had a good rookie season, but he was banged up this last year and didn't look good. So it's like you got Senga,
His-
Montas, Peterson, Clay Holmes, and Paul Blackburn. That's their starting rotation right now.
we haven't talked about that Clay Holmes move. They signed Clay Holmes to be a starter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I talked about
I,
it on the TikTok.
yeah, you
yeah.
did. I did not. I do not trust
I don't either.
Clay Holmes
I
at
think
all.
I think
He
Clay
could.
Holmes as a starter is going to be better than people think.
It might be fine, but I don't know. That's a hefty contract, right? That's like 13-ish million to get Clay Holmes on board.
It's the going
Try
rate
to
for that type
convert
of
him.
stuff.
It is, but I'm not a big fan of that, especially as you are a team sitting here dropping $765 million on a Juan
Yeah.
Soto. At this point,
Hey,
get into the market for those other
hey,
starting pitchers.
Yeah.
Go, you got to
listen,
go for it.
we weren't a fan of the Reynaldo Lopez contract last year either, except Matt.
Yeah, well, there's a
Oh,
difference
And
with Leonardo Lopez because
right.
he was a starter for the White Sox for multiple
Yep.
years, through almost 200 innings a couple of times. You knew he had that workload in him, and
Right.
I think the
Jordan
only
Hicks did
one,
the same
I think
thing.
Jordan Hicks is the one that you would kind of compare, and Jordan Hicks went pretty well, so you never know. I just, I don't know. I don't know with Clay Holmes. I I don't know how that move's going to go, but I mean, talking about the rotation in general, I was pulling it up. The rotation right now, if the season started today, is Kodai Senga, Frankie Montas, David Peterson.
Damien just went through it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. What, did you mention Paul Blackburn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I was looking. I
Paul
was too
Blackburn.
busy. I was gonna say I was too busy looking it up to listen to Damien.
To hear him say that
To
that was
hear
the
him say
lineup.
it.
Yeah.
But and one other point, I don't know if Damien mentioned this, but Christian Scott was somebody they were going to rely on, and he had Tommy John surgery.
Yep.
so he's out for the whole year. So that's one that they really liked and showed some flashes last year. And I just like I say, I mean, they're gonna have to make. I think they need at least one more pitcher, and they're gonna have to address, either third base, for corner infield, and you can maybe add another bat in center field or something, or DH. I don't think they have a DH right now, really. I mean, who would
Starling
Marte.
Marte probably.
Marte maybe? I mean, yeah, I
Marte
guess.
probably has to be that now because you
Yeah.
have Soto in right, Nimmo in left, and then Marte's not playing center anymore.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Marte almost has to be your DH.
Unless they try to
Um,
offload Marte, pay his
They
whole salary
could.
down and just pay his whole salary down, offload
what's he
him to
making?
the White Sox or something.
I mean, I don't think he's worth offloading
19?
though. I mean, if you're not, I mean, he's still a valuable enough player to keep on your roster. I mean, if you're just gonna cut him and pay off his salary, like there's no reason to do that. I don't think, unless you can get a piece back for him, which,
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. That's going to be an interesting thing to see what they do there. But I think we're all in agreement that they need another starting pitcher or two.
Yeah, they need more.
And somebody that is not like a back end of the rotation. They need somebody who is at least a middle of the road, like Sean Manaea, if not more.
Yeah.
Manaea and Jack Flaherty are the two that pique my interest here because I think Flaherty's market's going to struggle to develop, but the Mets can be the Cohen Mets and pay up for Flaherty, but do that without breaking the bank. Like a Flaherty deal will kind of look like Robbie Ray, I assume, right? Like a few years ago, like 5 for 115, and then it's like, well, that's a pretty strong deal, but that's nothing crazy. And the Mets have a guy that they can slot in there right behind Kodai Senga and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we've pretty much covered everything from the Soto side of it. We've already seen the action pick up.
Yeah.
From since this broke, it is winter meetings week as well, so there's seems to be a lot of moves getting ready to percolate. Anyways, I mean, just since we've been on here, we got Blake Trinan re-signing with the Dodgers, 2 years, $22 million. We got a bunch of the Soto stuff. Davidi, who is a Blue Jays reporter, said he expects the Blue Jays to pivot to Max Fried and Santander to be in both of their markets. We know that the Yankees and Red Sox are going to be in that same market with Teoscar Hernandez and Santander as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff happening. There's even been rumors the Crochet trade might happen at the deadline, the meetings. So
Morosi had a thing on Crochet this morning, and it was that I think the Red Sox were kind of holding that talk up because they were trying to wait to see what happened with Soto.
Yeah.
So that I assume gets done this week, and if so, we'll hop on and talk about it. For sure.
And I don't think anybody's really talked about the contenders that haven't really done anything yet and haven't really been rumored for anything right now. Think about like there's gonna be some moves that just pop out of nowhere. I feel like the Braves, the Astros are a team that nobody's mentioned the Astros the entire offseason. I don't think
outside of
supposedly
Bregman.
Cutting. Yeah, the Astros are supposed to be cutting.
So they might be, but either way, like nobody's mentioned them. They're a contender. Nobody's mentioned them at all. The Padres. The only time we've heard the Padres mentioned was with Roki.
They're cutting.
They might be cutting. But
the Padres, Cease and King have both been floated as they might trade them.
Really?
They don't have. They don't have much money to work with.
Yeah, without Seitler. Yeah.
I mean, they were even saying that there was some stuff that they could even be already priced out of, like Profar returning.
Really? Well, I guess
they haven't got a catcher. They still don't have a starting catcher.
Yeah.
Campusano got mentioned today as a trade candidate.
Really?
He's not good.
He's a project for sure.
You can find a starting caliber catcher that doesn't just lose you the season, pretty easy though. I mean, you go sign Danny Jansen.
He is a Ray.
I know. I'm just
Carson Kelly is the one remaining.
Oh dear God. Okay, maybe you can't find a catcher.
Gary Sanchez already went too.
Gary Sanchez is an Oriole. Yeah, you could trade for Mitch Garver from the Mariners.
He's not really a catcher.
He's not really a catcher.
Yeah.
They have already
done that. They did trade the Mariners closer for Austin Nola, who's not really a catcher and was
Oh
terrible. So,
man, that's right. Yeah.
um, and did they trade? There was somebody else. Ty France was in that, wasn't he?
Ty
Ty,
France
yeah.
was in that
Ty
deal.
France
Yep.
and Munoz for that. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Ty France will catch.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, look out for
Man,
some other teams that are just. I mean, look out for the I mentioned the Braves. That they haven't done anything. They're
you
talking about increasing payroll. Think about the Phillies. The Phillies haven't done anything yet. There's I've talked all of off season about how they are going to be aggressive.
they're trying
well,
to
I mean,
trade
yeah, they're
Bone.
trying to trade more than anything. They got to offload
Maybe,
pieces
but
before they could bring people in.
there's a lot of trading that needs to go on. So
Yep.
that would be a
Well,
move.
And
yeah,
this
but I
is
mean,
the week.
Yeah,
This is the
this
week
is
for it.
aggressiveness. Yeah,
I think to say that they haven't been mentioned is unfair because they have been mentioned.
Yeah.
It's just not on free agency. But no one's been mentioned really on free agency because Soto's been holding the
yeah.
entire
Soto's
thing
holding
up.
it all up.
Yep.
So
Like that's kind of where we're at. It's like now everything should open up.
I think here's a move for to tie it all to Soto. I think the Mets may move for Devin Williams. That might
Why
be
would
they
do
need
that?
they need some bullpen.
they need more bullpen. They
And
really do.
I'm not
Yeah, I don't.
Edwin Diaz closer is their only like good bullpen pitcher right
Yeah.
now. They need to add a
That
bullpen
was a,
pitcher.
that was another thing we were talking about last year. They had so many guys that just kind of came out of nowhere, and that bullpen was one of those places. And I just don't
Mhm.
see all those guys repeating what they did last year, like
I-
They
Reed
need to.
Garrett and
It might not be that specific player, but they need
Yeah,
to
Yeah.
add some certainty in the
they need
bullpen.
to add
I-
something.
yeah, you could find middle relievers though. Like I think trading for Devin Williams, who's a closer on a 1-year deal, who's most likely not going to resign with you, isn't probably the best option that they
The
could
Mets
do.
might offer him
The
a,
Mets can
a bunch
re-sign
of
him
money
to
though.
anybody they want, though.
Yeah, the Mets are in a spot where
Yeah,
everything the world is their oyster. Anything is on the table because there's going to be
can do
zero
whatever they
negative
want.
backlash for hey, we're trying to put together a team for Juan Soto to win a World Series in his first couple of seasons. Everything is on the table. Corbin Burns is on the table. It's just a matter of what Steve Cohen wants to do. And if he wants to kick up a $450 million payroll, he'll kick up a $450 million payroll. That's just how it's going to be. But I don't anticipate that. It's just they still need options. Is kind of the main point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's fair options out there that they could easily go pay for and get. I don't think trading for Devin Williams is kind of that move, but
It's not a Stearns move, that's for sure. But neither is signing Juan Soto. This seems like a Cohen thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
this
this
is
was
100%.
definitely-
This
is
a Cohen
definitely a
thing.
Cohen
There's
thing,
no shot that it would have not been like
which it's what we said all along. Cohen was not going to be outbid.
no.
One thing you'll never hear from us is talking about how Juan Soto is like overpaid or something at this point. Like this is the best play. He is a year younger or a year older than Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos just had his breakout last year. He hit 27 home runs. He looks like a really good player. Juan Soto has been in the majors for 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
47 and a half is not a year is not overpaying. You might end up talking about the 5th, 14th, 13th, 14th, and 15th year, and you might get up there and be like, man, this is looking bad. But I mean,
He'll be
with this
building for
contract-
500 home runs or something,
Well,
Like,
yeah,
like
I
what we had
mean,
with Miggy and Pujols, like it'll kind of
Yeah.
be the same.
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, but you know, your value will be changed
Have-
by then. But I mean, you're looking at this as a deal that I don't think it's necessarily a huge overpay or anything.
No.
And
No.
it's going to be really interesting, and I guess we'll be done here in a second. But it's going to be really, really interesting if he does take that opt out, because that's intriguing to me that he would even want an opt out in a deal like this. So I don't know how it'll be interesting to see how it's structured and if he actually takes that opt out, and and it might just be one of those things where he just doesn't want to be there anymore or something. Like if it goes poorly and he might do well, or the team might not do well or something, and he might just be like, I want to get out of here and go win somewhere if they're struggling. I mean, so
Yeah.
um,
And it doesn't always necessarily have to be that he wants to opt out. I mean, look what Manny Machado did. He did the same thing with the
Yeah.
Padres. He had the opt out, and he was just like, "I want an extension, so re-extend me, or I will opt out and leave." And he did that like a year early before his
Right.
opt out, and he got his new 11-year contract from that point.
It's
So-
look, props as we close. Props to Scott Boras, man. We criticized the heck out of him all off season last year. I think it was very fair. I think he mishandled a lot of the free agents he had last offseason. This offseason, he has been on a roll.
Yep.
And every player has been like, wow, that's more than we thought he was going to get. Every player is signing early. Every player has a very competitive market. I, tip my
Yeah.
cap because this is a complete rebound from what we were talking about last year. And Jordan Montgomery fired him. I think he's changed his approach. I think the Bregman thing is giving me pause, and that might be the one area where he
Yeah.
still is a little overzealous
I
on
think
his players, but we're seeing guys like much lower on his totem pole get more than they're expecting and it deals in their range
yeah.
where he's not asking for the moon for Michael Conforto. He's asking for like 5 million over the normal 1 year, 12 million projected. And he gets
Right.
it
Well,
because he can.
yeah. Well, you gotta. I think the biggest place that Boris has struggled is players that have in the past five, so let's say past 5 years, been stars who
Mhm.
have a lot of red flags and maybe are coming off of a year where they were a little bit down. That's going to be players like Pete Alonso, like
Mhm.
Alex Bregman to a certain level where he's not the same as he was in like 2019, but he's
Right.
still good. And Boris is going to value him like a 2019 Alex Bregman. He's going to value Pete Alonso
Mhm.
like 53 home run Pete Alonso. And those guys aren't. There's some red flags there. They're not the same. So Boris is going to value them at their peak, and the teams are going to be hesitant to sign them. I think that's what happened last year with all those guys. But it does give me a little bit of confidence in
Mhm.
Boris this year that Blake Snell got what he got, because that
Yep.
that was the one that Conforto getting what he got, at whatever, that's a 1 year deal. You look at Soto. Boris has never had a problem getting the top
Mhm.
guy his deal. He's never had a problem with that. It's those guys who are big names, who have had MVP caliber seasons
Mhm.
before, who have fallen off of that a little bit, that Boris wants to get paid like MVPs. And I think that's
Yep.
kind of the thing that he's always struggled with. And I don't know that that's really changed, except, Blake Snell gives me a little bit of confidence that it maybe has, but that also might have just been one thing where the Dodgers just were like, whatever, we'll just give you what you want. Like, I don't know that all those players are going to have that happen. Like, I don't think
Right.
somebody's just going to give Bregman $240 million, unless it's
No.
the Dodgers or maybe the Mets do. I don't know, but
And he's only asking for 200 at this point. Like, I don't
yeah,
think 200's out of the realm of possibility for him. I mean, the Astros
probably
offered
not.
him
Probably depends on the
156 or
probably depends on
something.
the
Yeah.
years.
That gap is
Yeah.
not terribly hefty. I
Yeah.
do think he
You give
gets
him
more than the
7 to 8 years.
156
Probably.
at this
You
point, but
you do 8 at 25. Or 8 at 200. It's 25 a year. Like, that's not
Yeah.
terrible.
That might be. I don't know. I don't know if I'd do that. I might do like six for one. What, 6 for 170 or something? Like,
and that's a
I
number
don't.
that you could bridge that. You could
yeah,
find a
you
way
probably
to
bridge
close that
that. Yeah,
gap if
six
you
for
were
one
truly
I
sixty.
feel
interested.
like I feel like if he was going to take 170, he would have just bridged the gap with the $14 million with the Astros
Yeah.
already.
Well, they might still
Mhm.
do that.
Like,
Right.
yeah, but I'm saying already
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
But
they both won each other. But
yeah.
anyways, that's not here for this episode nor there. But be on the lookout because it is, like I said, it is winter meetings week. There should be a ton more moves to happen. Any of the big moves, we'll jump on and do that, and then just be tuned to our TikTok. We're kind of putting all of our quick little hit news items out over there for the smaller moves. So be sure to tune in and watch winter meetings week because it's always going to be interesting.
Um, Damien, do you want to do the TikTok for Soto? Because I just did the one for Conforto.
I
Just
need to
tell it.
get on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say just
Let David.
David